All right, all right. Thank you so much once again. Tusind tak. Thank you so much for this wonderful response on the first set. It really feels like a great place to play here. This is my first time playing here at the hotel. And the view is just incredible to see. And anyway, I'm going to introduce the next project here. But first, before I do that, I'd like to bring your attention to a very special circumstance. When I moved here 3 years ago, I quickly met a journalist here by the name of Stan Getz, who happened to know about some of the jazz icons that used to live in Helsingør. So I knew that Stan Getz had lived here, and Duke Jordan, and of course Sven Asmussen and some others, but I didn't know where they lived. So when I moved to Helsingør, every time I could read in the Stan Getz biography that it was big house, 22 rooms, and so I figured every time I saw a big house, I wonder if it's there they lived. And then I read that Stan and Steve, their son Steve, where they would swim in the ocean every morning. So I think, oh, they must be by the beach. So I started looking at big houses on the beach, and I couldn't find it. Then finally I met Stan, and he said, I know where it is, because my father was their doctor. And I used to come along and visit them, and we became friends with the family. So he took me there, and then I wrote a letter to the current owner and said, can we do some concerts at your house? and he was very, very generous. And I wrote a letter, and he called me back. And the day he called me back happened to be, he didn't know that. He just called me back and said, I got your letter, thank you. That day happened to be Stan Getz's birthday. And of course, Stan being one of the greatest icons in jazz history, but also the artist that recorded the most, the top-selling jazz album of all time, Getz-Gilberto. It's a very significant jazz credential that Helsingør has. So that's part of the reason why I thought we gotta have a jazz festival here again, not have one. But then Niels Lan, we became friends, and we started to put together these ideas of doing concerts in the living room where. In the library, actually, on the first floor, where Stan used to rehearse and have his musicians over, and it's just been incredible. We did some shows there in September when we did our pre-premiere press launch, and then we this time around we've done 3 days in a row, 4 shows. It's just been completely mesmerizing. We've been doing something that we're going to present to you now. It's a group of musicians that a cast that I put together, and the idea was to live perform the Getz-Gilberto album, and with the same order of tunes, the same instrumentation, and then with a cast of musicians that interpret the songs in their own way. Of course, we're not going to be able to do exactly that whole album. Today, you'll get a little excerpt of it, and also the Getz-Gilberto album is like many albums is from the vinyl days, and in the vinyl days you could only fit approximately 40 or 44 minutes of music on there. So at the shows we add extra songs, the bonus tracks we call them, but they're still related to the repertoire. So I think tonight, since we're not going to be able to do the whole record, we'll do a few songs from the couple of songs from the record, and then some of the bonus tracks that are also by Antonio Carlos Jobim and related to the whole project. So I'll introduce you to them in a moment. There's a very international cast from 5 people from different parts of the world. But first of all, I would like you to meet a new dear friend of mine. I mean, I feel like I've known her my whole life, and we feel so blessed to have her among us again. This time she was here in September. She's back now. She's our guest of honor. I'd like for you to meet her. Please welcome Monica Getz.
Helsingør has been magic for us, and it's magic for me today too. So, Niels, I want to give you a compliment that Stan considered one of his greatest compliments, since you are dropping royalty names. Jazz royalty was Ellington. And one time Stan and I were in the audience, and Ellington said, I'd like to introduce you to Stan Getz and Monica Getz. The combination is beyond category. Why? Because together they changed the music world. And I think that you are, he introduced me as a visionary and a genius for Stan. And you are both a visionary and a genius. You know, when we were sitting in that library in that house, and 22 rooms, no, it does not have 22 rooms. That's the house we're in now. By accident, we got it so cheaply because precisely it had 22 rooms and nobody wanted a house like that. But that's another story. But when we sat in that library, Stan and I, often late into the night, and he was fooling around with the piano. He always wanted to play the piano because of the chords, but all his father could afford was a saxophone, so he was stuck with that. So we were talking about the future, and we were talking about doing a festival in Helsingør with a castle and in our house, and that was a novelty at that time, and we were going to name it Sounds, Sun. So here is this visionary now actually doing it. Can you imagine that we feel close? We're just spiritual twins somehow.
Yes, the Getz-Gilberto album and the jazz samba album and the Getz-Gilberto album that were the innovative album that Stan did mixing Brazilian music and jazz were done right after the family moved back from Helsingør back to the States, and Stan wasn't really pushing it very much. It was Monica who really made it happen. You convinced the producers, the DJs, and the record company heads, and so on, right?
Well, the record company actually, this followed something that Stan did called Jazz Samba, many of you know that, with Charlie Bird. And they kind of thought of it in a very harsh commercial light, which was the opposite of Stan and many other musicians would think of it. And so they thought it was just like a fad that would soon pass, like the Macarena or the Twist or whatever. And they always were looking to jump on something on the bandwagon to sell. And they decided to shut this down. And they put it in the vault. And when I confronted the idiotic, in retrospect, he was the head of the record company. It was called Verve MGM then. And they had MGM hits like How Much Is That Doggy in the Window, so you can imagine. So I confronted him and I said, here's the most beautiful music. It's really Jobim and João, like Mozart and Debussy and Eternal. How could you lock that up and not put that out? It could be accessed by anybody. And he said, nah, I think it'll be a footnote in history. In 20 years from now, maybe we'll release it for curiosity's sake. And I was furious and fuming. And Stan had never been told what to release and not to release. So he was absolutely beside himself. And so I decided that I would create a demand that would force the record company to release it. Because I had played a demo for my countess, who actually was, if you want to name drop royalty, Rolim Ingrid's best friend, the mother of the queen that gave him the prize. Stan never got any prize from any queen. Anyway, so what happened was that I went to Billboard and I said, how these days when jazz is in one category and pop music is in another, do you cross over to access the people? So he gave me a list of the DJs. The first thing he said was, payola. You're too young to know what payola meant, but that meant you give cash to the DJ to have it played. We didn't have that kind of money, and I had a price of a product. So I sat down and I wrote a letter to each one of the markets. He gave me all the markets in the United States, and then it was very expensive to call in those days, but I picked up the phone and I said, if you want to hear something like Benny Goodman and the Carnegie Hall concert of 1939-40 that everybody knew about, this is it. And then I sat back, and in San Francisco it began to get played more than the Beatles. That was popular then. And in more than Hello Dolly, that was a big Broadway show hit. And then Los Angeles, Chicago, St. Louis, and the whole country was just playing this record over and over again, and nobody could buy it. So I thought, gotta get to see the whole president of MGM, who was a big, big deal then, and he was on the top of the building with his feet on the desk, just like movie moguls, where I said truth is better than fiction. And through Creed Taylor's secretary, we got an appointment. She was a good friend of his secretary. And up I went with a little 45 and played that. And they said, yeah, I heard that in my limousine on the way to work. What's the big deal? And I said, the big deal is that you don't want to make any money, I suppose, because you have the rights to this record and you can't buy it anywhere. He looked at me and then he said, do you want the record company's job, president job? And I said, no, I don't want that job. He said, consider it out. And before I took the elevator down to Creed Taylor's office, there it was, release signal. And therefore,
I love the footnote in history. It's like, you know, since then the record has sold more than Michael Jackson's Thriller. I know that the Beatles, the first demo to Decca Records was rejected because they didn't think it was commercial enough. Yeah. I love that. Anyway, thank you for making that happen. It has had a profound impact on the jazz world. So we're celebrating this album with this cast of musicians we put together to redo some of these tunes and some more tunes by Jobim and so on. So we're going to present them to you now.
And I just want to say one thing, and that is, I've heard it now produced this way several times. And at first I was a little uncomfortable because it didn't sound just like the original ones, which is understandable. It's now 61 years later. But I want to say something about this crew. They kind of are making a bridge for each time that I heard it played. How many performances? 4. Yeah. I started to think about the history of this album, and it was initially conceived by João, Jobim, and Stan as an instrumental amongst them. And even though João sings, Stan always thought of João singing as an instrument. And then in the last minute, Astrid was added because of the visual of this young girl walking on the beach, and she had managed to learn. João never learned English. He made it a principle of life not to learn English. But she had learned English so she could present that visual, like Corcovado is also a visual. So she sang it, taught, had never had any public performances before that I know, and taught by João to be very unemotional. And then after listening in the library to Nancy, I could see that when she gets to, I was a little uncomfortable where I heard her sing The Girl from Ipanema because it was so difficult. But she gets to do something that's written by Jobim that I wasn't even aware of, called Fotografia. Listen to that. she then becomes another instrument. And that fits into the instrumental concept. For instance, Stan added somebody called Milton Banana, you can't make that up, that name, to the rhythm section because he was innocent, straight from Brazil. It was just perfect for that moment. And I think Nancy and this crew is perfect for 2022. It builds that bridge from then to now, and it's as contemporary as ever. Thank you.
Thank you, Monica. Thank you so much for being here. We love you. Thank you. All right. Okay, so let's bring on the group. It's an international group, so she's been talking about Nancy Harm, so why don't we bring her up first. Please welcome from Minnesota. Originally she lives in New York, Nancy Harm, vocals. On guitar and vocal from Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, please welcome Daniel Rolim. On bass from Toronto, Canada, please welcome Graig Earle. And from Denmark, one of Denmark's finest drummers, and one of the finest drummers anywhere for that matter, but his most important credential is he's from Helsingør. Jonas Johansen. Jonas Johansen on drums. And finally on tenor saxophone from Budapest, Hungary, please welcome Gabor Bolla.
Já não podem ver coisas que só o coração pode entender. Fundamental é mesmo amor, é impossível ser feliz sozinho. O resto é o mar, é tudo que eu não sei contar. São coisas lindas que eu tenho pra te dar. Vem de mansinha a brisa e me diz que é impossível ser feliz sozinho. Da primeira vez era a cidade, da segunda ao cais e a eternidade. Agora eu já sei da onda que se ergueu no mar e das estrelas que esquecemos de contar. O amor se deixa surpreender enquanto a noite vem nos envolver.
never two can dream a dream together. You can't deny. Don't try to fight the rising sea. Don't fight the moon, the stars and clouds. And don't fight the fundamental laws. Goes whenever two can dream a dream together. When I saw you first, the time was 3:30. When your eyes met mine, it was eternity. So now you know the wave is on its way to me. Don't fight the wave, don't be afraid. Loving me, the fundamental laws goes whenever two can dream a dream together.
Together, oh, together, together, oh, together, together, oh, together, together. Obrigado, gente. Obrigado.
Love is like a never-ending melody. Poets have compared it to a symphony. A symphony conducted by the light of the moon. But our song of love is slightly out of tune. Once your kisses raise me to a fever pitch. Now the orchestration doesn't seem so rich. Seems to me you changed the tune we used to sing. And like a bossa nova, love should swing. We used to harmonize two souls in perfect tune. But now the song is different and the words don't even rhyme. 'Cause you forgot the melody our heart would always croon. And so we're going to heart that's slightly out of tune. To be your heart to mine the way it used to be. Join with me in harmony and sing a song of love. We're about to get
isso é que eu desafio, amor. Saiba que sem mim provoca imensa dor. Só privilegiados têm ouvido igual ao seu. Eu possuo apenas o que Deus me deu. Se você insistir em classificar o meu comportamento diante musical, eu mesmo mentindo devo argumentar que isso é bossa nova, que isso é muito natural. O que você não sabe nem sequer pressente é que os desafinados também têm um coração. Fotografei você com a minha Rolleiflex, revelou-se a sua enorme ingratidão. Só não poderá falar assim do meu amor. Ele é o maior que você pode encontrar, viu? Você com a sua música esqueceu do principal. É que no peito dos desafinados, no fundo do peito bate calado. No peito dos desafinados também bate o coração. Thank you. Obrigado.
Thank you very much. Next up is my favorite Jobim tune.
You and I, we two, alone here on this terrace by the sea. The sun is going down, and in your eyes I see the changing color of the sea. It's time for you to go. The day is done, and shadows stretch their arms to bring the night. The sun falls in the sea and down below. A window light we see, just you and me. You and I, we two, alone in this cafe.
simple story of desire. And suddenly that
Monica, please. No? Much better.
The microphone. I just want to say, if Stan had known Nancy, she would have been on that album.
Happy birthday to me, right? Thank you so much, Monica. What a joy it has been to meet you. Really, so beautiful to have you here. Really creates such a sense of authenticity, like the moment just extends into now. It all comes together into one. Beautiful. So we're going to take it out with a samba, and then you have some more great music coming your way, so we'll keep moving along. But everybody needs a little samba in their day. Right?
Hey.
This is just a little samba built upon a single note. Other notes are bound to follow, but the melody still that note. Now the next one is the consequence of the one we just been through. So I'm bound to be the unavoidable consequence of you. There's so many people talking, just say nothing or nearly nothing. I had to drop all the skills I know and nothing, and I come to nothing or nearly nothing. So I come back to that first note as I must come back to you. I will pour into that one note all the love I feel for you. And the one who wants the whole show, re mi fa sol la ti do, he will find himself with no show. Better play the notes you know.
Outras notas vão entrar, mas a base é uma só. Essa outra é consequência do que acabo de dizer. Como eu sou a consequência inevitável de você. Eis aqui este sambinha, feito numa nota só. Outras notas vão entrar, mas a base é uma só. Essa outra é consequência do que acabo de dizer. Como eu sou a consequência inevitável de você. Quanta gente existe por aí que fala tanto e não diz nada, ou quase nada. Já me utilizei de toda escala e no final não sobrou nada. Não deu em nada e voltei pra minha nota. Como eu volto pra você, vou contar com a minha nota. Como eu gosto de você. E quem quer todas as notas, é mi, fá, sol, lá, si, dó. Fica sempre sem nenhuma, fique numa nota só.
He will find himself with no show. Better play the notes you know.
Fica sempre sem nenhuma, fique numa nota só.
Thank you so much, Gabor Bolla. We have Graig Earle on the bass. Jonas Johansen. Rolim. My name is Nancy Harms. Thank you so much. Have a good night. Enjoy the rest of the show.
Wow. Thank you so much, everyone. Wow. Up next, we have something to do with the fact that this year is the Toots Thielemans Centennial. The official Toots Thielemans Foundation are organizing a worldwide celebration of the great Toots Thielemans, because he would have been 100 years old this year. So for this occasion, his birthday, his 100th birthday was just last month, and we were asked to deliver a show in Brussels for this occasion. And when I say we, I'm talking about an organization I have called the Niels Lan Doky International Jazz Collective. We're like a network of 65 plus musicians from different parts of the world that get together regularly here in Denmark mostly, and we do shows like this, and we do our concert series at Louisiana Museum and elsewhere. So we have this little extended family of favorite musicians of different generations getting together for different projects. And so we were asked to send a project to Brussels last night. And of course we sent a group around the great young Danish harmonica player Mathias Heise. So he just played at the Toots Thielemans event in Brussels last night for a big crowd of 3,500 people, and it was a huge success. And he almost didn't make it back to Denmark. Flights were canceled and what have you, but we managed to get him on a flight, and he's here now, and he's going to do a few tunes for you. And he's going to be performing a duo with a friend of his who's also a new member of our team, I can say. He's been playing, you've been hearing him maybe around Helsingør on our tour of Helsingør concept. Has been doing pop-up shows in different shops and cafes and restaurants around Helsingør for the last few days, and he's one of the great new young talents on guitar from Denmark. It's Pelle von Bülow. So please welcome Pelle von Bülow and Mathias Heise.
Is one of the most famous tunes of all time, and it's called Bésame Mucho. And you may know that this means kiss me a lot. And the Mexican girl who wrote this song had never been kissed when she wrote the song, so she had a deep urge. And she was 15. She was 15. Yeah, she was 15 years old, so it was natural enough. But then Wes Montgomery, the jazz guitar player, he took the tune and made his version of it, where you can tell that he's been kissed a couple of times, but he would like to be kissed some more. And that's the version we're gonna do. Bésame mucho.